Hi, I'm Amber with Solutions for Simplicity, and this video is the first of a 3-part series on how you can simplify your life. We are going to start today with the foundations of a simple life, the big things that you have to have in place if you want to live a simpler, more meaningful and intentional life. Then next week, we're going to talk about very specific ways that you can declutter your life and simplify things immediately, followed by the third video where I'm going to give you very easy ways that you can make your life less crazy to free up more time for who and what you love, which is the message of this entire channel. If you are excited, give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss any of the videos in this series, and check out all the other videos I have for you on ways that you can really make sure you are living your best life. Let's jump straight into the tips for the foundations of a simpler life. The very most important thing, the first step in creating a simpler life, is to make sure that you are getting as much sleep as you can. I know I sound like a broken record on this channel, but sleep is so important. Sleep is really so fundamental. It's at the heart of everything else that we try and do. If we are not giving our bodies the rest that it needs, then our mind isn't right, and we cannot see what we need to do to make changes, to make it better, let alone have the energy to actually take those steps. So please, please, please make sure that you are carving out time to get regular sleep and have a set bedtime, a set wake time schedule. You can check out this video for more on why that is so important. Stop making excuses and just get the sleep you know your body needs. Yes, this is always easier said than done, but you know that there are many ways in which you might sabotage the sleep time that you have or the quality of sleep that you're getting. We know what we need to do to get good sleep. So start making changes to do those things. Make sleep the heart of your life, and you will feel so much simpler and better soon. The second foundation of a simpler life is to block out time to do nothing. These days, our schedules are so jam-packed with to-dos and commitments and opportunities, and those things can be wonderful. But if we are not intentional with carving out time to have blank space and leave a cushion for whatever comes up, right, then we are really not giving ourselves the chance to live in the moment, because we're always pushing for the next thing. We're always running from here to there. I know I don't have to explain this. Now, while I have given you many tips for organizing your to-do list and getting things done more quickly in other videos, again, linked for you in the description, I think that today our society has just really lost the art of being able to sit on the front porch and sip a cup of coffee, or, go out for a walk and have a real conversation with the people around us. We're all so hooked on our devices, and we're so just focused on things that are stealing our time and attention from what might be right in front of us. To the best of your abilities, really see when you can block out time in your schedule, and don't plan anything in that window. Give yourself a chance to just listen to the birds chirping, or watch your children playing, or be open to an invitation that arises at that time. But don't plan out every single minute of every single day. Flowing right from that, number 3 is to make sure that every night you sit down and identify the top thing that you need to get done the next day. Take a few minutes. I know we always feel rushed, and we do want to take time to wind down before bed. This isn't meant to get your brain churning, but it helps us set ourselves up for success the next day, which I have mentioned in this video, if we take a few minutes to think about what really has to happen. And if we organize our minds around our 1, 2, maybe 3 most important tasks, there are always going to be things vying for our time and attention, and we need to be really intentional about what we prioritize, right? We want to align our time with our values. And the best way that I think we can do this is to make sure that every day, the night before, we have pinpointed what we are going to focus that time and energy on. This really helps us start the day with a clearer picture of what has to happen, and then anything else that gets done on top of that really just feels like icing on the cake. Number 4 is one that you're not gonna like, or maybe it is something that has come to mind as an immediate way that you could simplify your life. That is that it's really important to cut back on our time hooked to our devices. We are all so addicted to our phones. We might be way too engaged in social media. And while those things do have a purpose and they can bring some value to our lives, I think most of us just have that gut reaction and know that we're overusing them. We are overusing technology. We are too addicted to social media. So the most important thing that you need to do to set up a foundation for a simpler life is set times where you are going to be on, you're going to be hooked into your phone, into social media. You'll check messages and reply, or you will have time that you can, browse and scroll and what have you. But make sure that you also then have set times where you are unplugged, where you are not available. It's so important to disconnect as much as possible, which again goes back to my point of trying to live in the real world and see the beauty all around us. So if you are looking for very practical ways to use social media less, check out this video where I give you 10 tips to use social media less and stop wasting your time on living in the virtual world instead of the beautiful world right around you. The 5th foundation of a simpler life is to make sure and find those windows of opportunity where you can do more of what matters to you. Yes, we all have a million things going on and we, have this routine in our life, but I think we forget that there are moments of opportunity that pop up. And if we look for those patterns and really try and see when we could carve out more time, then we will be more prepared to use them intentionally when they happen. I have spoken elsewhere about the critical importance of isolating our peak performance window. In other words, finding out when your body is naturally primed for productivity and mental clarity and focus so that you can use those windows effectively. But it's also so important to think about your daily, your weekly, and your monthly flow, right? Your routine and your schedule, and when is the best time to do certain tasks. Are there things that you can consolidate and do more efficiently altogether? Just make sure that you see a general pattern to your life, and then you are working with the grain instead of swimming upstream. I know I'm mixing all my analogies here, but you don't want to be fighting against the current and trying to force something to happen. It's only going to add stress. So make sure that you are trying to do what you need to do when you have the time and energy to do it. Number 6 is so important. One of the biggest foundations for leading a simpler life is to identify our triggers, the things that make us blow up and go crazy and just lose control, both of our actions and our emotions and of our time. So let me give you a few examples. Is there a time of the day that you tend to lose it? For instance, I have noticed that, at least more in the past, I used to get so crazy and stressed in the evenings when we'd be coming home from work and my kids were hungry and dinner still needed to be made and I was exhausted, and so often all I wanted was just to hurry up and get through the evening, get the kids to bed, and crash. Right? So I have now been able to identify that and work to make things run smoother, put more meal planning in place, and do other things to prevent myself from falling into that trigger or being triggered by those pressure moments. Another really helpful thing is to think about who you are around and how you feel around those people. Are there certain relationships that tend to stress you out? Does it make you go crazy to be in a certain environment or a certain social situation? Do you feel worse when you're on social media? Are there people you follow that are not a good influence in one way or another? If anyone or anything is making you feel less than the person you are because you are wonderful and worthy and belong, if anyone is not adding value to your life, then really work to minimize the time that you spend around them to the best that you can. A third question to ask yourself is, what are the scenarios that set you off? For instance, I've got 3 little kids, and I notice that when they start fighting or screaming, I am so prone to losing my cool because the noise and the motion and the commotion just really make everybody go crazy, or have a tendency to make everybody go crazy. But the point is that realizing that then helps me step back, and every time I hear things starting to go downhill, I can take a deep breath and I can think about the person I want to be in that moment, the mom that I want to show up as. And my point to you is to just think about ways that you can pause in those crazy moments, and instead of letting yourself get set off by the situation, think about how you will handle those kinds of things ahead of time, and then hopefully you will be far less likely to go crazy. Finally, I think it's really important to take a deep look at whether some of these triggers are signs of a bigger issue. For instance, one of the big triggers for me might sound really silly to you, or if you're a mom, I imagine you can relate, right? But something that in the past I really let bother me too much was a messy house. I love when everything is clean and organized and put together and decluttered, right? That is so wonderful when we're trying to simplify our lives. But oftentimes that is not reality with kids, or at least not in my household. And again, because my husband and I both work, there are many moments where things don't get cleaned up right away, or we just have stacks and messes and things that, yes, get done eventually, but it really can set me off in the moment. And what I had to realize, the very big wake-up call that I needed to have, was that our lives were too full. We were overcommitted. We were trying to do too much. I had too many proverbial plates spinning in the air, and the thing that was getting dropped was the house. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Only you know what is truly important. And the decision I came to was ultimately that having a clean house isn't going to be my top priority. One of the ways that I'm going to simplify my life is caring less about how things look in the moment, because I know I've seen from experience that ultimately in the big picture, over the span of a couple days or a week, let alone a month and a year, things all fall into place. So we don't have to freak out in those moments. But that said, I also took a good hard look at bigger changes I could make so that my husband and I weren't working as much, or working to the point that our schedules were conflicting with one another and we could no longer be who we needed to be at home. I hope all of that makes sense. It is a really important point to identify your triggers and figure out the things that you can then know ahead of time are likely to stress you out, so that you can work to minimize and avoid finding yourself in those situations, or at least handle them so much better when they do happen. The 7th foundation of a simpler life is to get really comfortable with saying no. We are so programmed to seek other people's approval and to just constantly want to accept the invitations and opportunities and responsibilities that befall us. But our time is precious. There's only so much of it to go around. It is a zero-sum game where inevitably spending time on one thing means we do not have that time and energy to spend on something else. So I have just really realized the importance of getting comfortable with saying no. There is nothing wrong with it. If anything, it's actually doing our loved ones and the people who are depending on us a disservice, because if we say we're going to do something and then we can't, or we don't, then we lose trust and we are unreliable and we feel horrible. So nobody needs that. It is in everybody's best interest to think carefully before we take on a task or a commitment or an opportunity. Everything is great, but we don't have time for it all. So I have found very helpful ways of saying, thank you for thinking of me, or that sounds great, but I can't fit it in at this time. It's always easier said than done, but as best as you can, really make sure that you are only filling your time with the things that are adding value to your life, the things that are pushing your success needle forward. And everything else can either wait or get done at a slightly lower standard, or maybe, just maybe, doesn't have a place in your life at all. Number 8 is to create a vision board, and I will soon be making a video all about mine, but visions and what we see in front of us can be so powerful. I've previously talked about how words are powerful and how the way we speak to ourselves is so important and perpetuates our reality, whatever that may be, and how we can be intentional with the reality we are creating for ourselves. But it is also so important that if we are seeking more simplicity, we see that. Now, our immediate lives might not be simple overnight, right? It's an ongoing process. Simplicity is such a journey, but creating a vision board where we post pictures that give us inspiration and where we see examples of how other people are leading that simpler life we crave gives us that space, that mental place that we can go to and imagine ourselves there. And the more that we do that, the more that will become our reality, and we can create that surrounding in our own life as well. Now, even if you don't create a vision board and go to the extreme of cutting out pictures or looking on Pinterest and finding examples of people leading a simple life, I would encourage you to really think about the mission of your life. What are your values? What do you want? What kind of life do you want to be living? We cannot get where we're trying to go if we don't know where that is. So it's so important. It is a huge foundation of a simpler life to make sure that we know what we are working towards and what kind of life we want to be creating. Only when we have thoughtfully and intentionally planned that out do we then begin to know how we're going to get there. Ooh, number 9 is a big one. The 9th foundation for leading a simpler life is to know our weaknesses. What are the things that throw us off track? If our life is not simple right now, why? What is it that we might be guilty of doing? Do we have a problem with buying things when we find them on sale? Do we have a problem with overcommitting, as we've already talked about? Do we have a problem with holding on to things that people have given us or that we just, for whatever reason can't let go? Do we have a problem with too much paper clutter? Do we have, just too many clothes? There are so many ways that we inevitably are leading more of a complicated life than we should. And if we don't know our downfalls, then we can't work to address them. This also applies for when and how we get distracted, right? What are the things that lead us off track when it comes to how we spend our time? So if you are looking for ideas on how to be more focused or get motivated, check out the links in the description where I post videos I made on those topics too. That brings us to number 10. The 10th foundation for a simpler life is to keep an eye out for when things do go well. When things do run smoothly, it's so important for us to dissect that and really play back in our minds the order in which we did things, the people we were around, the food that we may have eaten, the situations we were in, how much sleep we got the night before, all of that stuff. Good days leave clues behind, just as successful people have left clues behind for other people seeking that same success. And so we can use our good days and our purposeful moments to help us figure out small things that we can do, ways that we can change so that we can recreate that as much as possible. Okay, again, so if you are wanting to know how to live intentionally, how you can simplify your life and really maybe go from the stressed, overwhelmed, just crazy life you've been living to one full of simplicity and purpose and more time for who and what you love, these are the foundational things that we all need to have in place. I hope you got so much value out of this video. Please make sure and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to make sure that you don't miss the next couple of videos in this series on how to get more simplicity in your life. We're going to be talking next week again all about practical ways to simplify, and then I'm going to follow that up with some very easy ways that you can make your life less busy, less crazy, so you don't want to miss a thing. In the meantime, check out these other videos I've made, and until next time, have a great day.